Right, so it is now more than 24 hours since Donald Trump revealed his plans to ethnically cleanse the whole of the Gaza Strip, and our true-to-form coward of a Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has yet to issue any kind of statement on the matter. Pressed at Prime Minister's questions yesterday, as he was, on his view of Trump's plans and whether he would push back against the rhetoric Trump had come out with, Starmer's response was not reassuring in that regard, to put it lightly, largely dodging the question put to him entirely. This is not grown-up politics. This is not diplomacy either. This is not preservation of the so-called special relationship. This is just plain and simple cowardice from a Prime Minister too afraid to rock the boat, too afraid of offending Trump to even stand up for the bare minimum of international law, when Starmer used to be a human rights lawyer. His cowardice implies he doesn't believe in it. Oh, he's seen plenty of reason to believe that previously. His cowardice, however, is also an embarrassment to us as a nation when other nations, even pro-Israel nations, are not holding back in their condemnation of Trump. And if he can't represent us on the world stage with as many foreign trips as Keir Starmer has been taking, we need to get rid. This wooden PM of ours is dead wood and dead weight. If he hasn't got the guts to take on Trump, we need somebody who will. So we better hurry up and resign then.
Last night, many of us were alarmed to hear President Trump speak about forcibly displacing 1.8 million people from Gaza. The Prime Minister has spoken to the President on several occasions now. Does he personally believe that Trump recognises the dangers of statements like this to the fragile ceasefire in Gaza, and indeed to the security of both Palestinians and Israelis? I'm glad that the Foreign Secretary has confirmed that the government's position is still a two-state solution. I think that has support on all sides of the House. But will he reassure the House that this position and our concerns on these dangerous statements from the President will be communicated to the White House directly and firmly?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, you raised a very important issue. The most important issue on the ceasefire is obviously sustained. We see it through the phases, and that means that the remaining hostages come out and the aid that's desperately needed gets into Gaza at speed and at the volumes that are needed. I have, from the last few weeks, two images fixed in my mind. The first is the image of Emily Damari reunited with her mother, which I found extremely moving. The second was the image of thousands of Palestinians literally walking through the rubble to try to find their homes and their communities in Gaza. They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
Patricia.
You often hear this line that we have to show diplomacy towards Donald Trump. He's the American president, so now, well, I don't know what the implication is, that we have to accept anything he does. Diplomacy is not telling another president or another leader of a country that they're right about everything. And when that president is essentially advocating for ethnic cleansing, is this not the point at which you say, okay, maybe you've gone too far now? Now, just to be clear, that point was a long time ago. That point was when a genocide was being committed, in which we in the UK are also complicit in terms of enabling arms to Israel. But if Keir Starmer speaks out now, it will not be enough, but it would be the basic minimum. It would be the least he could do to see an American president calling for this and to at least show some decency and just the very beginnings of international law to say this is not acceptable.
Right, so a couple of video clips there. The first from Prime Minister's questions yesterday, where Lib Dem leader Ed Davey put to Starmer Trump's plans to forcibly displace the people of Gaza. Ethnic cleansing, a war crime, the definition of a genocide as that is. And Davey wanted to know whether or not Starmer was going to put to Trump the UK's opposition to these plans. Starmer, for the most part, avoided that question entirely, preferring to discuss the ceasefire in place instead, that it keeps going, though this is frankly a pipe dream with Netanyahu's government certain to collapse if it does so, or if he tries to push it into phase 2. Therefore, not an option for Netanyahu at all. He will screw up those phase 2 talks somehow, thus far by not attending them at all, I might add. He spoke of the aid getting in at the volumes needed, but as regular viewers of this channel will know, it isn't getting in, and that is certainly true of the most sorely needed aid, such as water. Starmer then We went off on a complete tangent, talking about the release of British hostage Emily Damari, who had served in the IDF despite many in the media and Starmer claiming her to be British. She's actually a dual national, as it happens, who was born in Israel and is ordinarily resident out there. And the second was of the people of Gaza moving back north, that long line of people crossing the Netzarim corridor, which I do agree with Starmer over, was a moving scene. But given Starmer's opposition to backing these people and ending arms sales to Israel, arms being used against these very same people that he's talking about that so moved him moving back north, because there is no differentiation between who is Hamas and who isn't as far as Israel goes. And you don't end up killing more than 61,000 people in 15 months when Hamas isn't anything near that large a group if you aren't taking out so many innocent people along with it. 70% of those killed, we know, were women and children. It was a thoroughly disingenuous response that did not answer Davies' question. It's all well and good saying the people of Gaza should be allowed back to their homes and be allowed to rebuild, which stands in contrast to Trump's position, certainly. But it's not telling Trump that to his face. It's not making that the UK's official position to the President of the United States. He didn't say he would be in touch with Trump about it. He said nothing to Trump or anyone else. There has been no official statement published by the Prime Minister in response to Trump's plan. Which brings me on to that second part of that clip. Once more, we have Zach Polanski of the Green Party calling out what needs to be called out here, saying what needs saying. Yet there are so few politicians that actually do it. But much like the content I generally cover on this channel, the mainstream media like to ignore the Greens, don't they? So rely on social media to get their points across as they do so often. Silence by omission, as Starmer is doing, is tacit acceptance. Yet it gets behind words like diplomacy. Well, there's no diplomacy when there's no communication on a given subject, is there? And Starmer isn't talking to Trump and hasn't set out the British position in a formal statement. Therefore, despite the words to see off a Lib Dem question in PMQs, which he didn't really answer anyway, nothing is committed to. But as Polanski pointed out there, we have to consider the gravity of the situation here and what Starmer is effectively hiding away from confronting. And that is the President of the United States advocating for ethnic cleansing, and he, Keir Starmer, former human rights lawyer, as he's constantly reminded us, won't say boo about it to him. Again, it calls into question Starmer's human rights credentials, of course, and if he ever really believed in them, or whether all he believed in was the big fat paycheck he got at the end of the day. And this is hardly the first time he has had those credentials called into question either, both over the course of 15 months of genocide being carried out in Gaza, where he won't even use the word genocide in association with that, to his assault on the elderly and the disabled domestically in Labour policy. He has traded on those credentials as head of the Crown Prosecution Service so many times that when it comes to the law and to human rights, he is under the microscope at all times. And every time he demonstrates that he doesn't hold to what he purportedly once did before he entered politics, it reminds us all just how shamelessly dishonest he truly is. But now cowardice alongside that. As Polanski also rightfully points out, though, it shouldn't have taken 15 months for Starmer to arrive at any position, even remotely pro-Palestinian, such as the calls for them to be allowed to rebuild, and Britain being alongside them in doing that, though, because it should have come from the start. Certainly you can and should condemn Hamas for their actions on the night of October 7th, 2023, but atrocities were committed by Israel going back a long, long time before that. Gaza has been under occupation since 1967, for example. And since as well, with the targeting of hospitals and churches and mosques and schools throughout Gaza in the time since the October 7th attack by Hamas and the 15 months of genocide that Israel had been meting out. That should have elicited the claim from Starmer that Israel has committed war crimes. It should have come 15 months ago, really, when it became obvious that they are guilty of genocide. He damn well knows the definition of that word, after all. And it shouldn't have taken 15 months to get as weak a response out of him as he gave to Ed Davey on this matter yesterday. Arms sales should have been ceased completely. The UK is complicit in this genocide as a result of not having done that already. And instead of still bleating about a pipe dream two-state solution, as both Davey and Starmer are guilty of doing, the realisation that a Palestinian state, which is its people more than the land, I would add, should be recognised as so many other countries have already done. Starmer is bought and paid for by the Israel lobby, of course. I've discussed this so many times on this channel, I won't do it again here. But he owes them everything, and therefore can promise the Palestinian people nothing, making even his weak words on helping Gaza rebuild functionally meaningless. If you took Starmer at his word even on that, and fewer people are foolish enough to do that anymore, well, he's seeing you coming, isn't he? Polanski described it as indecent of Keir Starmer to not call Trump out, that to do so now would be the bare minimum required, and that it won't be enough because it is too late. But really, ought to be the least we expect all the same. He's right, it is too late, but it's still the bare minimum we should expect from our elected leader. But even that is to expect too much of Starmer. He is a coward. He hides from confrontation unless it is to punch down on those with less power. His cowardice is shining through now more than ever. People incredulous at the insanity of Trump's move here will rightfully be asking themselves, where is our national response to this? What is Starmer going to do about it? And the answer is nothing. He's too timid. He owes too much to the Israel lobby to ever push his luck with them, where it comes to Israel certainly, and when it comes to supporting them, even when that turns to talk of ethnic cleansing. Keir Starmer is a shiver looking for a spine, and we should all know it. But if not, compare it to some other politicians and what they have said. How about even more pro-Israel Germany and their Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who has said, the civilian population of Gaza must not be expelled and Gaza must not be permanently occupied or repopulated. It is clear that Gaza, like the West Bank and East Jerusalem, belongs to the Palestinians. They form the basis for a future Palestinian state. It would also lead to new suffering and new hatred. There must be no solution over the heads of the Palestinians. Short and to the point. And she's massively pro-Israel. Ireland have also not been shy about their views on Israel. I'm sure we all know how not shy they have been about it. Their Foreign Minister Simon Harris has said, it's very clear the direction of travel here. We need a two-state solution, and the people of Palestine and the people of Israel both have a right to live in states safely side by side, and that's where the focus has to be. Any idea of displacing the people of Gaza anywhere else would be in clear contradiction with UN Security Council resolutions. And as for the Green Party, if we come back to them, their co-leader Carla Denyer has written to David Lammy, also hiding away, demanding the US ambassador be summoned to answer questions about Trump's call to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and also posted a video herself demanding Starmer grow a set, or political words to that effect, a video you also will have certainly not already seen.
Yesterday, the President of the United States welcomed Netanyahu into the White House, a man who is wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. Sitting beside one another, the President proposed removing Palestinians from Gaza. Let us be clear, the forced removal of a people from their homeland is ethnic cleansing. World leaders cannot stand by and allow those threats to go unchallenged. Our Prime Minister must make clear that the plans outlined by Trump will not be tolerated. The people of Gaza have endured intolerable violence and suffering. We must now do all we can to support them, to rebuild their homes, their lives, and their communities.
There are politicians out there making the right noise, which is why the media completely ignore them. And we do need to pay attention, and we do need to listen to what they have to say, even if we have to look for it a little bit. Where Starmer has no guts to call out Trump, he brags about having the big balls to go after fraudsters. Benefit fraudsters, not the tax kind, of course. They might be Labour donors as well, you see. But in what could be the most devastating assault on social security ever seen, millions could be pinched from the pockets of those with the most additional needs and those with the lowest incomes, too often one in the same, in order to try and make Rachel from Accounts' sums add up. Check out that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't already, so that you don't miss out on all new content dropping daily, as well as help support this channel, which is very much appreciated as well. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.